parts 3 and 4 of Piranesi. We're really into the meat of it now. I'm not used to this sort of pace, but that's just because I'm not used to reading such a short book. Um, so we sort of know the plot now. It seems this world of the house, the labyrinth, is a magical world, and it seems it was. We discover through a series of journal entries. Actually, I'm not sure if this was in the previous one, but Piranesi's journal entries. We find that his earlier journal entries, what we thought were journal 1, 2, and 3, were actually journals 21, 22, and 23, etc. So his early journals are from a life, sort of a different life. They were him, but before he lost his memory and became Piranesi living in this world. Those journals are from whoever he was before when he lived in our world. And it seems like he was a journalist of some sort, perhaps a student. He wanted to write a book about the occult, and specifically this guy Lawrence. What's his name? Lawrence Errol. No, Lawrence A. He's got like a long hyphenated name that I can't remember. Lawrence Arn Sales. So Lawrence Arn Sales seems to be sort of the main antagonist. He enters this section, part 3, as the prophet, is how Piranesi refers to him. But he, through these journal entries, we sort of gather that Aaron Sales, Lawrence, he was interested in the occult, and he, through breaking into a museum that contained the head of a Celtic man who was buried, or who the head was found in a bog after millennia, Adidormus. This head he communicated with somehow through some sort of ritual, and gained knowledge, some sort of ancient magical knowledge that allowed him to open up a portal or discover a way to travel to the world of this book, the house that Piranesi now inhabits. And Aaron Sales also had sort of a cohort, or sort of a following of students and disciples that he took to the house, one of them being Valentine Ketterly, who is the other. Another one being Sylvia D'Agostino or something, who was a woman that could very easily traverse to the world and back again. She possessed the ability to do it just very easily. It says she disappeared in the early 90s, and given the age of our protagonist, mid 30s, my first conclusion is, oh, she was pregnant with Piranesi, traveled to the house, birthed him, and I don't know what became of her after that, but Piranesi is this child of hers that was born in the house and was raised by the house, and that's why he's the way he is. However, that's not the case. I just jumped to that conclusion because that's just that trope is so prevalent that I see it everywhere, that I have to link two characters by sort of genealogy. Anyways, we also find out more about Lawrence, this Aaron Sales guy, that he's like a kind of an awful guy. He kidnaps young men, or specifically one young man, and locks him up in his house for like over a year, and seems to have used him as like an experiment and sent him to the house and maybe locked him up in the house for a while. And so Lawrence gets sent to prison in, I think, 1997. he loses credibility. But while he's in prison, he writes his book about the house. He sort of becomes a pariah, but that's when he gets on the radar of people such as the person who I believe becomes Piranesi through memory loss, Matthew Rose Sorensen, who I think is Piranesi, and I think is the one who's trying to write a book on Lawrence, and in his attempt to gather knowledge and interview people and get to know sort of the story of the occult and transgressive knowledge, ends up trapped in the house. So we also meet 16. I don't know if 16 was mentioned earlier, but 16 is someone that when Lawrence the prophet shows up and talks to Piranesi, he warns him of 16. The other, Ketterly, also warns Piranesi of 16. However, Ketterly doesn't know that Aaron Sales had visited the halls and talked to Piranesi, but they're definitely opposing. Ketterly had been a student of Aaron Sales, but they're definitely have opposing views now. They're not on the same side, but they both recognize 16 as a threat in whatever regard. Now, because 16 is female, and the only female we know of being mentioned is this Sylvia, so I'm assuming it's Sylvia. She's writes some messages on the wall to try and speak with Piranesi. However, he erases them before he can read them, because he's convinced that she'll turn him mad just by her words. He's sort of gotten this from the other, from Ketterly. However, she does write out in stones, "Are you Matthew Rose Sorensen?" Which, upon hearing that, he sort of has a vision of, or at least visualizes or imagines being on a busy street in sort of a city, and then snaps back. And it seems to me that this is him sort of temporarily transitioning out of the house, transporting back to reality, before snapping back into the house, which to him, he says, "Oh, I awaken to reality in the house," because his memories, whatever happened to his memories, whatever the house has done to his memories, the house is his new reality. Is Piranesi's reality, maybe not Matthew Rose Sorensen's reality. But I do think the two are the same, or at least were the same. So what else do we have? Ketterly, or the other, it's revealed that he's not sort of trapped in the house. He leaves the house and goes back to our world certain times, because Piranesi calculates that there's going to be a massive flood on this certain Thursday, and he warns Ketterly, or he warns the other, like, there's this huge flood coming, and the other's like, "Oh, on Thursday? Oh, I won't be here, don't worry about it." Piranesi's like, "Well, where are you going to be?" He's like, "Oh, no, don't worry about it, I'm not going to be here." So he has the ability to come and go as he pleases. So other than that, I don't know that there's anything too important, but it just seems to be a lot of background, and we sort of understand the nature of the house now. It was described as if the world once had lots of magic in it. That magic seeped through the world. However, over millennia, magic seeping through the world into another place, that seepage would have eroded a pathway, and then that pathway would have led to a place that had been sort of eroded out into halls and a whole other world, and that other world is where this sort of magic seeped through. That world is the house, and presumably because the magic went there, is still there, and that's what Ketterly's trying to find. But Aaron Sales seems to think it's not there and that Ketterly's wasting his time. Piranesi agrees, but doesn't fully understand the whole thing. It's very interesting. It's such a different book. It reminds me of stuff like for some reason the OA, the Netflix show. Just because it's very weird and very sort of otherworldly and very simple in terms of small number of characters, not an in-depth world with lots of lore and geopolitics and culture and society. It's just a handful of people, very simple setting, complex but simple. Um, it's a very I don't know if compelling is the word, but it is a great read, and I look forward to very soon finishing the rest of the book. I mean, I only have 70 pages left. So yeah, I guess that's as far as we go. We're gonna find out who 16 is, who Piranesi is, why he's lost his memory. Will he ever get back to the real world? What is the true nature of the house? So there's lots of questions, but I feel like not all of them have to be answered. And even if they're not, I'm I guess 3/4 of the way through, I feel like I have enough answers. So and it's really nice to read a shorter book, like a 250-page book, in comparison to the 600 pages books that I've been going on for the past few years. So yeah, that's parts 3 and 4 of Susanna Clarke's Piranesi.